Good afternoon. Welcome to Meatheads. This week on Meatheads, we'll be discussing the personality of fitness, our top 5 suspension cable exercises, and what we hate about fitness influencers.
First Nations Wireless is now First Nations Fiber. You've seen our team working through the community to get you connected. From the new development to the OCR, from the 207 to Clay Mountains, FN Fiber makes fiber optic internet easy for everyone. Coming to Ganhawaga soon. Visit radio.fnfiber.com to sign up today.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Lalonde. This is Meatheads, with joining me, as always, my friend, your friend, Ganhawaga's premier fitness expert, Derek DeLille. Derek, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I could not be better if I were twins, my friend. I am feeling really, really good because I'm super excited about this podcast. Why am I super excited about this podcast? Because we're going to talk about this week's big topic, and that is the personality of fitness, or rather, how all fitness is personal. We're going to get into a little bit of discussion today about fitness classes, fitness trends, things we like, things we don't like. But moreover, we're going to talk about the importance of doing things that get you, dear listener, moving. Derek, you and I both enjoy lifting weights on our own. We're not big class people. We're not big joiners. But there is a place for that in fitness, and it's a substantial place. Tell me a little bit about your experience in that area.
Well, I find as long as somebody gets off their couch and joins an exercise class, and if that's what they need, I think that's beneficial for them. I've coached a few group classes when you have a bunch of people in there and you're all doing the exercises together. It's a lot of, you build a lot of friendship there, a lot of high fives. It's very energetic. It's very motivating. It gets the people moving, and it gets them to keep coming and having a good time working out.
My main teaching before the pandemic consisted of, I taught a lot of group classes for seniors in Montreal's West Island. And that was a genuine pleasure of mine. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that I actually did a bunch of aerobic choreography in a lot of those classes. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you that it's not my strength, but it was a lot of fun. And as you say, the camaraderie in some of those classes, the shared sort of vibe of putting that effort out together, and how it feels to, sort of be along for the ride and not be alone in your misery. It really does, create an atmosphere of inclusion. And I would argue, and maybe you've seen this as well, in that working with older adults, or older athletes, as I like to call them, is almost the most satisfying of all the teaching we could possibly do, because you see results immediately, both in their quality of life and in their output in the gym. Agree, disagree?
That's for sure. It's actually a funny story. One of my very first jobs as a PT manager at this big gym out in Ontario, the aerobic instructor wasn't in today. So my job was to fill in for her. And I've never done that before. I've always done the one-on-one training, bodybuilding style training. And when I went in there, I was nervous. It was a women's club only. And, it was, I guess, 40 and above, maybe 50 years old and above. So I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I'm looking online, looking at these exercises. What can they do? What can't they do? And I go into the studio, and it had, had the music, had the lights, it had everything. And it was kind of refreshing, different than what I was used to doing. I was kind of nervous, but I went through it. I think 2 ladies walked out, but the rest stayed. And I think it was a little bit too hard for them. It was a little bit different, but they all enjoyed it, and they all kind of came back the next time, because I had to fill in for a few weeks for that lady. Mm-hmm. And it was fun because they're having fun. They're not in there to impress anybody. They're just there jumping around, having fun, doing their stretching, doing their exercises. And it was nice to see them exercising. It was fun. It was a different experience, and it was a lot of fun for me.
I think you hit on the most important thing. I think fun has to be the most important part. One of the classes I happened to teach before the pandemic hit in 2020 was I taught spinning. I had never taken a spinning class before in my life before I started teaching them. So I went from a 0 spin person to a couple of times a week spin teacher. And let me go ahead and tell you, Derek, how much fun it was, because I was frankly so surprised at how much I enjoyed it, and so surprised at what a great sweat it gets you, because, by the middle of, 7 or 8 minutes in, you are dripping sweat all over the place. It's fantastic. And, matching, matching your choreography or your bike movements to music is really a fun challenge as an instructor. And I don't love being in spinning classes. I don't love them. It's not my favorite fitness, class, group, what have you. It's not my favorite thing to do. But I love teaching it. I love doing it, and I was surprised at how much I loved it. Do you have anything like that in your past?
I had to do a spinning class. Part of being a trainer at this club was to do all the group X classes, all the group exercise classes. So we have our own intake on them. And I remember doing the spinning, and this is coming from me maybe 15, 20 years ago when I was more into bodybuilding and heavy lifting and reps and all that Arnold stuff. And I jumped on the bike, and the first thing I'm like, this is cardio. Cardio is bad for us. And during the workout, I didn't enjoy it. I just didn't like the exercise, and I didn't like the up, down, turn the dial left, right, up, down. It wasn't my thing. I did the class. I got the sweat. I got a sore knee from it, but I was a bigger guy back then, so maybe my knees couldn't handle it. I just didn't enjoy the experience, but I do know a lot of people do enjoy it, but unfortunately I wasn't one of them.
No, that's fair. I'm more along the lines of, was there anything in your past that you were surprised you enjoyed as much as you did?
I would have to say we actually had a yoga at the class one time, and I've never thought yoga would be hard. I never thought anything of it. It's most for older people, but we had a demonstration class at our gym once to give it a try. And that's something I actually did enjoy. It made me feel a little bit more flexible, a little bit more limber. And I wish I kind of stayed with it. Now that I'm 46, I could use the extra stretching that I kind of, brushed by a few years ago.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny, like I'm the same way about stretching. I don't do it enough. I have taken a couple of yoga classes and found myself again pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed them because of just what a challenge they were. My flexibility is on the low side. I'm not going to go ahead and lie to anyone in that regard, but I rather enjoyed them. And much to my surprise, I was, aghast at how much I enjoyed them. On the other hand, something I don't enjoy as much is Zumba. I can't follow choreography to save my life. I can't follow an instructor in terms of Zumba to save my life. And I don't really dance very well, nor do I enjoy dancing. But that being said, I know that a lot of people do love these things. So I have one client who loves to dance, and she sees me for strength training a couple of times a week, and she goes to a virtual Zumba class the other 3 times. And you know what? I'm highly encouraging of it because, one, it gets her moving an hour a day more than she otherwise would. And 2, it satisfies the cardiovascular sort of demands that I'd like to have her put on her body in order so I can concentrate on more strength training when we're together.
Yeah, and I find that Zumba works because when you're doing Zumba, not that I've done it before, but when you're doing Zumba, it's like you're kind of dancing, you're having fun. You don't really realize you're exercising, but you are moving around and you're doing the moves, and hey, you're learning to dance. Why not?
Right. And I think that's the most important thing, is not knowing you're actually putting in exercise and effort and you're just having fun. I think that's the most important thing. And frankly, because all fitness is personal, you have to do what you enjoy. If you do shoulder presses every day and military presses every day and you get that number way up, hey, great. I'm not going to do it every day, but more power to you if you can and you want to. It's been one of those things over the years where when I weight train, I used to love weight training by myself. Now I find myself far more sociable as far as a weight trainer goes, and I vastly prefer working out with a partner. You got a thought on that?
Yeah, I've always trained by myself or with my spouse, my partner. But I've always liked to kind of be by myself. Not to say I wouldn't work out with somebody, but when I go in to work out nowadays anyways, it's mostly to kind of relieve stress. I have my own goals that I'm looking forward to. And I find that when people cheer you on and pat you on the back and high five you after doing a set of squats, for me, it's a little bit more distracting. I like to go in there, focus on what I got to do. I'll play some chill music. It's not loud, heavy metal, AC/DC or anything like that. It's kind of chill. It takes me into a different kind of, a different type of zone vibe for myself. Yeah, I find it just helps me. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I don't even listen to music. I just listen to myself working out and the weights clanging. That gets me motivated. Mm-hmm. For me, that's just worked well for me for the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm. So music wise, what's on your playlist?
You know what? I'll either play whatever is on the radio, or I got a country playlist that brings me back to happy times in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And when a song comes on, it brings back good memories. And it sounds kind of like too chill for my workouts, but for me, it works. It gets me past that sticking point in my workouts. It just makes me feel good and positive and energetic. And for me, that works. Like some people come in and they gotta play the thrash metal on the music channel. I'm like, to me, that's just distracting. I can't hear myself think. And I know I visualize myself working out when I'm doing a row. I visualize the muscles moving, contracting, what I want them to look like or what I think they might look like under all this skin and stuff. It's kind of weird. But you know what? It's to each their own. Mm-hmm. Whatever that works for somebody, they might like the loud music, the hip hop, the rap, whatever gets them into their zone and gives them a quality workout.
I have a bunch of different playlists that vary on the day. So if I'm in a pissy mood, I have an angry hip hop playlist. If I'm in a neutral mood, I have a sort of an up-tempo pop music playlist. And if I'm in a really great mood, I'm super smiley and super chipper, which is the rarest of the three these days. I have something a little bit more upbeat as well. That's got like Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses and some Shakira songs. And it's hard not to move when Shakira is playing in your ear. Like it's just really hard not to. I'm a fan. The hips don't lie. Anyway, moving right along, we are going to be we've set up our top 5 this week. Last time we did an episode, we did our top 10 cuts of meats, which I think ended up getting cut down to top 5 meats, which were delicious, but sort of off topic. So this week we had a really good discussion ahead of time, and Derek and I both agreed that we came up with a top 5 that I think is a little bit more pertinent to our fitness discussion, and I think a little bit more pertinent for those people who don't love Arby's nearly as much as I do. So, Derek, we're going to be discussing this week. Initially, I actually said, what do you think are our top 5 TRX exercises? But that would be giving that company free advertising, and we don't want to do that. So we're just going to call them suspension cables. Does that work for you?
Sounds good.
So I know for a fact, personally, you have suspension cables in your gym. Mm-hmm. I also drive around with a set of suspension cables in my trunk that can be used anywhere, anytime I am anywhere. How handy are they?
They're the greatest tool I've ever come across. My whole gym in the beginning of time was based around these suspension trainers. When I was doing boot camps outside, I can strap them to a tree, strap them to a fence, to a jungle gym park. You can do anything. And right from the early days of working out, I've always been told there's different categories of exercise from easy to hard. And the hardest was meaning body weight exercises, a squat, a pull-up, a push-up, even a dip. But not many people can do these properly. So I find the suspension trainer comes in handy where you're lifting a portion of your weight. So your body is still moving through space, but not at your full weight. You can change it around, and there's so many things you can do with these trainers. It's incredible.
I couldn't agree more. And to add to what you just said, the beauty of these trainers is that they were created by armed forces personnel for them to be able to work out if they were, camping in Afghanistan somewhere under a rock. They could tie up their suspension cable and get a workout in. And as you say, a lot of us have done. I've done outdoor workouts as well, and the suspension cables clipped to a tree, clipped to a fence. It's so handy. And as you say, it allows people to do a portion of their body weight in terms of the exercise, and allows for every muscle group to get a workout, no matter the location. So as you said, they're fantastic. And so this week we are going to present our top 5 suspension cable exercises. Derek, number 5.
My number 5 would be a suspension chest press or push-up. At any angle, various angles. I find it makes an unstable surface. So it's like you're working different muscles that you probably wouldn't work with a bench press or a normal push-up, and it makes it a little bit more challenging. You feel it in your abs a lot. So I think the push-up would be in the top 5.
I'm so glad you said that, because I also attacked the chest with my number 5, but it complements yours. I went with crucifix chest flies. So these are I found these are amongst the hardest exercises. And as you say, it's like we're on the same page here. As you say, it really engages your core and forces you to maintain core integrity throughout your workout. So not only are you working all those little tiny muscles in the core, you're working your chest and your shoulders in a way that is beneficial and using your own body weight. You know, you're squeezing that down in front. What I tell my people is, I'm like, get yourself set up on your toes. I like to set up on my toes and allow myself to drop into almost 90 degrees and then push the body back up, squeezing the cables back together in front, almost in a hugging motion. So that's my number 5. So we've attacked the chest now. That's a good one. Number 4, Derek, got a thought?
Yeah, number 4, I have, it would be, I guess you could call it a rear delt raise or a side raise where the anchor is at the top and you're just kind of doing a reverse fly motion for the back and trap area and delts. And it's a very tough exercise. Got to find that right positioning where there's tension throughout the whole range of motion. And it really helps with your upper shoulder and back muscles. I
couldn't agree more. That's it. That's an excellent one. That's not even on my list. So fantastic. Thank you for bringing in something I hadn't even considered. My number 4 is personal. So going back a couple of years, I tore my quadricep muscle playing hockey. I had surgery on it, but the surgeon said that it would probably never get 100% better. So one of the exercises I've done in order to re-strengthen that leg is single leg suspension cable split squats. So using my arms up in the air, a portion of my body weight is suspended on the cable. I just drop up and down on my bad leg and use that one to push. So I'll rep out until I can't do it anymore. And, you know, it's starting to rebuild the quadricep back a little bit in my leg. And the beauty of that exercise is, again, core integrity. By using that upper body, you know, by hanging on a little bit in front and just going up and down on a rail, it forces me to maintain your TVA, locking in and engaged and all that wonderful stuff. So yeah, it's fabulous. So we've attacked the legs, the delts, and the chest. What you got, friend?
The next one is actually one of my favorites, would be a row. Just
Row.
a simple 1-arm row or a 2-arm row. Mm-hmm. I find it gives you similar benefits. Well, maybe not the same benefits as a pull-up, but your body's moving through space and you're doing a nice row. You can bring it to your lower stomach. You can bring it out to your chest area by going a little bit wide. But any type of row on that, and it feels just great. You can actually focus on the lats working because you have no other choice. You won't have momentum. You're not jumping on chins. And I find it gives a great back workout.
I'm going to put a pin in rows for now because I may be touching on that a little bit later. So my number 3, there is no movement at all. My number 3 is a suspension cable plank. So putting your toes in the cable and putting your body out and away from it, you just sit there and hold the plank with the toes in the air.
Yeah, fantastic.
And that's both horrific and wonderful all at the same time. I am not a fan, and yet I am a fan. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Every so often, it's a fun one to trot out to impress people too. Because they're like, whoa, it's crazy you're doing that. It's actually not quite as tough as it sounds, but it is tougher than it looks, if that makes sense.
Yep. So
that's my number 3 is suspension cable plank, toes in the handles. Number 2.
Well, since you brought that one up, I remember doing it was called circles, where you put your hands in the straps.
Yeah.
And the anchor point's kind of directly above you, and you just do little circles with your hands, and it's like a plank, but it really, really engages your core. And to make it harder, you just widen your arms a little bit and make little circles, bring it back in, and it hits your shoulders, your back. It hits everything. And that's a great thing about these straps is that no muscle gets left
behind.
Exactly, it hits everything.
That's a similar concept to when you got your feet, when you're planking out on the ball and you do a little rotation with a Swiss ball around.
That's right. Yeah.
Those would be a nice complement to one another. In fact, I think I might try those this afternoon. I'm feeling rather masochistic and I haven't worked out yet today. So that'll be delightful, I'm sure. So my number 2 is, or actually that we didn't actually cover your number 2 yet. That was, did the circles count? Because I thought, was that your number 2?
Circles,
okay, so circles, since we're on the topic of abs. Okay, so you like the circles. Number 2, I'm going with pulls all the way around. So number 2, my favorite number 2 is a really, really simple one, and it's a bicep curl. And it is, I hang my cables, I'll supinate my wrists, and I will just, lock my elbows into my rib cage and pull up and release slowly. Doing this 15, 20 times, especially if you don't really have much else to lift when you're working outdoors, really, really does engage the bicep. I love that one.
That's an extremely hard exercise. I kind of do the same thing, except I try to keep my elbows a little higher.
Yep.
So it's almost like you're doing a 90-degree preacher curl in a sense.
I was going to actually just mention that because you really do want to, but another part of that is the aspect of the wrist.
Yeah.
When you're doing the suspension cable preacher curl, as you say, you really have to get your wrists engaged in that and bring it back towards the shoulder. Otherwise, you're just not going to get the cable in place.
And some people look at it like it's easy, and a lot of people don't realize how hard it is because, again, you're working everything and your body weight isn't, it's tough.
It really is tough because you're curling your body weight and it is not pleasant.
Yep.
So number one, we're getting down to our number one. This is let's have a virtual drum roll. Number one.
Mine would be overhead suspension extensions for the triceps.
Oh, yeah.
You get an extreme stretch, which is great for many reasons for muscle growth.
Yep.
And because your hands or your elbows are over your head, you get a lot of engagement from the abs.
Yes.
So a lot of people get sore upper ab. Well, there's only one ab muscle, but they get sore at the top of the abs.
Yes.
And the triceps. So it's a double whammy for that one.
So I mean, that's the beauty of the suspension cables, right? Is everything you're doing is engaging your core as well. So it becomes almost greater than the sum of its parts. It's not like, if you're doing, say 15 suspension cable rows, you're not only, getting 15 reps to your lats and your biceps, but you're also getting that into your core. So that's something you won't necessarily get in a gym sitting in a lat pull down.
Right.
That being said, I think I just gave away my number one, and that's Trx Rows. And I love them, and here's why. You can do them 3 different ways and work 3 different parts of your lats and your biceps. So, what I tell a lot of my clients is my first row I teach them is a neutral grip. So they're just holding it and they're pulling their body weight up. They're learning to sit in the plank, lower themselves slowly. I tell them often to get up on their heels and create a fulcrum like that if there's enough grip on the floor to allow them to get even into a greater recline and pull back up. My second variation and progression on that is of course a wider pull with the elbows, a little wider in a less of a neutral grip and more of a pronated grip. Okay. And then from there, the third progression is you do a pronated grip and reverse it into a supinated row and then turn it right back around. So you have to keep your core engaged as you're taking the torque off of the lats and the biceps in order to reverse the grip. So that's the third progression, and that's the toughest one of all. So that's why I love Trx Rows as my number one, suspension cable rows, because they have so many possibilities.
Yeah, and it's hard to just limit 5 because there's so many exercises you can do. And once you play around with it, you'll find many exercises for your abs, for your arms, for your shoulders, your back, legs even.
Right, and it's not an expensive investment.
Nope.
You're talking less than $200, and you can work out every muscle in your body.
Right.
If you're still concerned with COVID-19 and you don't want to go to a gym and you want to work out at home and you want to work out outdoors by yourself, a suspension cable is a fantastic investment. So we've touched on suspension cables. We've touched on some of our big topic subjects for the week. So Derek and I are going to get into a little bit more personal stuff now. Derek, we've been talking about what we've been watching on Netflix and streaming and viewing and things like that these days. What are you into, my friend?
When I watch Netflix, I can't get into episodes, a series. Mm-hmm. My girlfriend likes to, let's watch a series, but I like quick gratification. I like watching a plot, the climax of the movie, and it ends. I always find with a series, it's like you want to watch it, you want to keep watching it, and it feels like in my life I don't have much time to sit there and power watch 3 because I like to see the ending. So it's like you're watching something, there's no ending to it. You got to keep watching. Whereas a movie, I'll choose any type of movie. And I like just having the ending and I go to bed happy.
Sure, right. So the narrative is wrapped up in 2.5 hours and it's done. Yeah. Right? You don't have anything to hang on to. You don't have to wait for next week. There's no to be continued.
Right.
So what did you watch this week?
What did I just recently watch? I wish I go through so many movies. I sometimes don't even remember. What was it called? It was a Rob Zombie movie, one of his new ones. Devil's Rejects, the third one that came out.
The Devil's Rejects, yes.
But there's a third one that came out. after they go to prison, they come out. That's the latest one I just recently watched last week.
All right.
It's not the greatest, to be honest with you. I find once you have a movie part 1, that's it. Sometimes you shouldn't make a part 2 or a part 3. My son's been kind of watching the Spider-Man series because we saw the latest one. So he wanted to watch all of them. So the last one actually makes sense with everything that's going on. So those were the 2 that we just recently watched.
And so you watched the whole Spider-Man 1, 2, 3,
yeah,
and the Amazing Ones with Andrew Garfield, is that right?
Tobey Maguire, yeah, exactly. He wanted to go through all of them. I'm like, all right, let's watch them. And then we went to go watch the new one that just came out. So he kind of had an idea what was going on.
Right, yeah, important to have that background for No Way Home.
Yeah.
So you can identify with why the villains are there and how cool it all is. Agree. Far be it from me to post any spoilers, but the movie did come out almost 4 months ago, so I don't think we're spoiling anything at this point. It's funny. I have to say, I understand where you're coming from. I understand your dilemma with your partner because there are 2 kinds of people in the world. There are on streaming, there are movie people and there are series people, and they are all different, and inevitably they marry one another.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates all kinds of issues at home.
Because she can power watch like a whole season or 2, and I'm just like, I get bored quickly. I think
Sure.
so. I'll watch like half a season, and then if it keeps going, it keeps intriguing me. I'll watch it. Like we watched Money Heist last year during COVID, and I really got into that, but there's nothing else to do during COVID, so we just kind of sat and watched it, and it was okay. But I was able to go to the next one, go to the next. So I watched 3 episodes, go to bed, wake up, and the next day I watched it and keep continuing. But in my regular life, I can't do that.
Well, I find myself rewatching a series I rather enjoyed when it first came out about 6 or 7 years ago, and that's Marvel's Daredevil. It's moved from Netflix to Disney Plus, as you know, Disney has taken all the Marvel properties back under its own streaming auspices. But I would argue that it's one of the better pieces of superhero material to date. And as you say, it doesn't tend to wrap up narratives all that quickly. But on the other hand, boy, is it a fun superhero jaunt. So if you like, you know, mysteries and crime thrillers and things like that, I highly recommend checking this out on Disney Plus. I really do enjoy it, and I'm really glad that I started watching it again. Something else I've been doing lately is consuming. There's a show on Crave called Winning Time, which is the story of the Los Angeles Lakers rise to dominance in the 80s under Pat Riley and the Showtime era. And it's the television retelling of a book written by Jeff Pearlman, which I bought in December and am currently in the process of rereading after having read it the first time. Let me tell you, it's called Showtime, the story of the Showtime Lakers with Magic Kareem and Pat Riley. And it is one of the better reads I can remember enjoying basically since the last time I read a Jeff Pearlman book, which was Boys Will Be Boys, which is another expose on the 1990s Dallas Cowboys. If you are an old school sports fan, I highly recommend checking some of this out. Are you a basketball fan at all?
No, I haven't. I don't watch much basketball.
No, not a basketball guy.
No.
What about football? How do you like it?
Not even
what do you think about
football.
football?
I used to watch hockey when I played hockey.
Yeah.
But then it became a time when I was never home during the games, so I stopped watching.
Right.
You know,
trainers' hours. They're great. Aren't they?
Yeah. You get home and you can watch like the midnight shows sometimes. After you eat supper and it's like 9 o'clock. I'm like, all right, kids, go to bed. What's on TV now?
You check out any of the CrossFit stuff on Netflix? The CrossFit games, things like that. My daughter watches that. She loves that stuff.
If it's on, I'll watch it, but I'm not one to kind of look for it on TV. If it's on there and
things
it's
like
there,
that.
Yeah.
So Derek, I'm catching a lot of lukewarm responses to media in here today. Is there anything you really do love in media? Like, is there a show or a movie? What do you love, man?
You know,
I want to know.
I don't watch much TV. If anything, it's usually because I got kids, so I watch whatever they're watching, and I try to stay away from too much media. I like to focus on what I'm doing in my little personal life, trying to build myself and going through my own little issues of life. So I'm trying to just focus on myself and not get too much outside stuff that's not going to benefit me right now.
Right. But you are a little bit of a Marvel fan. You and your son?
Yeah, we love the Marvels, the DCs, and yeah. Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, all that stuff.
Okay, so DC has their movie offerings. They just came out with The Batman, the most recent one. Marvel has their movie offerings. There's substantially more of them. Which do you like better? because you got to be one. You can't pick one or the other anymore. And it's been this way for a long time. You are either a DC person or a Marvel person.
I'm a Marvel person.
Yeah.
Yeah. My ex used to like the Batmans, but no.
Yeah.
We used to battle which ones we're going to go see. But I like the Marvel.
Okay.
Yeah. That's our stuff.
All right. So Marvel it is. Eh?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I was DC. Now as I've grown up and I see the gray shades of gray in the world, I'm much more of a Marvel fan, but not for the reason you might think. The reason I like the Marvel stuff is because as dark as some of their stuff can be, it also pokes fun at itself once in a while. It's able to laugh. They're able to introduce some moments of levity. Even if the world's about to end, there's jokes to be had. And I appreciate that.
Right.
I need some humor in my superhero offerings. You know what I mean? Deadpool. Love Deadpool.
Yeah.
Can't get enough of that. So I've come over and I'm on your side too. I love Marvel. A lot of people have sort of said, oh, the Snyder cut of the Justice League was better and this and that. Listen, DC, your act is not together right now. You need to get it together. Come see me when it is together and maybe I'll convert back.
Well, maybe the new Batman might change my my ideas.
It was excellent.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, it was excellent. I rather enjoyed it. It was I enjoyed it very much, and I thought it was a really good addition to the Batman lexicon. I thought Robert Pattinson was surprisingly good. I thought Zoe Kravitz as the Catwoman was excellent, and I thought everybody who was in it brought their A game, frankly.
Good.
So highly recommend. You should check that out. We're near the end of the podcast for this week, near the end of our broadcast, but we would be remiss if we didn't spend some time discussing those things that we hate. We've already discussed some things that we love, but we got to discuss some things that we hate. So it's my turn this week, and I am going to bring up Instagram influencers who get unduly mad at people using their space in a gym. So I don't know about you, but I've borne witness in the last few weeks. I don't know if it's the algorithm on my social media feeds or what, but I have come across a number of videos where quote unquote social media influencers misbehave in gyms, getting upset with people who walk in front of their video while they're trying to film themselves doing exercises or generate likes or what. But essentially what happens is the people who, are innocently minding their own business, walking through a gym, get crapped on social media by a quote unquote influencer because they are somehow entitled to that space. Do you have a thought on that?
So yeah, I haven't seen anything like that. So it's kind of intriguing me that you're talking about this. I'd like to see something like that, but I don't like these influencers to start off with. I find they give a lot of a false sense of what you can attain. I have actually a client messaged me yesterday. He was feeling depressed. I'm like, well, what's going on? He goes, I don't know. I don't know if my workouts are going good anymore. I go on YouTube or I go on Instagram and I see all these Instagram celebrities and promoting their stuff and they're getting before and after pictures and they're just making it look too good to be true. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I've been stuck at the same weights and same stuff. Like, what am I doing wrong? And he was, if you're into working out, sometimes that plays a head game with you. Like, what makes this guy so special and what's he doing? And a lot of times they're just too much over themselves and not giving the real information. And I find it takes away from what fitness is really about.
Well, and I happen to agree with you, and maybe not because, you haven't come across these videos as I have, so you haven't seen some of this entitled behavior. And I'm not even going to touch on that now, but I am going to touch on the idea that because someone is 20 and in great shape, that doesn't make their body attainable for someone who is 50 and just starting to work out.
Right.
And so I think it's important that you take all of your fitness social media offerings with as many grains of salt as you possibly can, because comparing yourself to someone else is really never going to benefit you in the long run, unless you are an elite bodybuilder, which 99.9% of our clients are not.
Yeah, and I tend to stay away from all that as well, because sometimes I'll have a client come in with the TikTok workout of the day, and this fitness lady on it was doing it. She said, it's really good for my abs, and she's in great shape. And I looked at the program, I'm like, she's sitting next to a wall doing leg raises, like a seated leg raise on a wall, like sitting on the floor on her bum, and all the exercises just looked like foo-foo to get likes because the video had her wearing tights or very short shorts, and it's like people are gonna watch it. Okay, well, she looks great, I'm gonna do it. So the girl came in with it and she wrote on my board she wanted to do that instead of my regular ab workout. I'm like, it gives a false. These people they're doing it for likes and for views. It's not like they're doing it for the benefit of much people.
No,
some of them are really good at like watching them, but then some just seems like I'll just keep scrolling through. Like, it just seems too much nowadays for me.
I find it all exhausting.
It really is.
I happened to come across somebody in my gym the other day videoing themselves and didn't give me grief for walking through their space. But had they done so, I would have probably given them a piece of my mind, because I remember thinking to myself, you know, that's a lot of unmitigated gall you have to take up that amount of space and say, well, I'm going to lay claim to this space because I'm an influencer. You know, I first of all, I question the influencer title. And second, if you're in a big gym, mind your own damn business.
You know what? I haven't been to a big gym since I've had my own, and I can't say I do miss it. You know, like when my buddy's like, hey, we're going to this big gym in the West Island, want to come with us? Yeah. And I'm like, nah, you guys can go. Like, some of my clients will go there and just try it out, whatever. I'm like, nah, I don't want to go. He goes, oh, well, wear your TF sweaters there. I'm like, okay, you can do that, but I've been there, done that. I'm just not into that environment anymore where everything's a show and everybody's got their cameras out. No one does any real work anymore. Yeah. Go in there, grunt, spit in the mirror, you know, like not on purpose, obviously, but you know, you're grunting, you're groaning, you're working out. Because if you're taking a video of yourself, you're not going to make faces. Nope. You're going to have the lipstick on. But you know what I mean? People are going to not put in the work because they want to make sure they look good. They got the designer clothes on that they tag in so they get the, I guess, monies from it and whatnot. I find it just turned everything wrong in my eyes, what fitness was about back in the day. You know, back in the day, we saw pictures of bodybuilders, Arnold. They didn't have designer pants on. They had like whatever shorts they had on, a raggedy tank top, and that was it. They impressed me by what they did, the effort they put in, not just what they're wearing and what they're looking in. And
that makes sense to me. Moral of this story, it's more about the work you put in than what's on your back when you're doing it.
Pretty much. Like I was talking to one of my clients this morning, we were talking about stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? You came in with the same raggedy shorts and shirt that I've seen you for like the last 5 years in, you know, type of thing. He goes, yeah, I don't care what I wear. You know, as long as my shoes are good, everything else is just comfort. And I'm like, you know, cool.
That's it. And the older I get, the more comfort is important to me, unless I give a crap what anyone else cares about. Yeah. That being said, I'll probably still look for these influencers who are pissing me off. Really, really appreciate you listening to my rant here today, Derek. Thank you. It means a lot to me. It's really delightful that at least one person, you know, gets as mad as I do about certain things. So thank you all very much for listening. This has been Meatheads. Derek, it's a pleasure, as always, to have you on the show. Thank you very much for your expertise and your engagement. Derek is the CEO of Total Fitness right here in Gutawage, and he is the premier resource here in town for any type of fitness information you might require. My name is Mark Lalone. Thanks for listening to Meatheads. Thanks for listening to Meatheads, and please check out our other podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or Google, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Check out the front page, profiles, and the beating table.
The views and opinions of the guests expressed in this podcast do not reflect those of Iorì and its employees.